energy in the ground, and they recognised that there were power points in space, and places like Glastonbury Tor is a very major power point in space. So also there are power points in time. There are certain times when it is very auspicious to do certain things, and this can be all sorts of different things. It can be planting your crops, it can be cutting your hair, it can be starting a venture, or it can be, for example, spiritual ceremonies. And so what's significant about Beltane is that it's early May, and it is the time when the life force is really coming forward strongly. It's at its most bounteous. The flowers are coming out, and all the lands are there, and all the grass is growing, and it's getting warm, and the flies are coming out, and people are feeling open, and they're freeing themselves up, you know, after all the restraints that winter can bring. Powwow, to me, is a coming together of people in order to communicate with each other, in order to share their spirits with each other, and to decide, basically. People come, and we sit in a circle. Very important, we sit in a circle. We are all equal in this circle. And we start by sitting and holding hands and spending a few minutes quietly, simply allowing our preconceptions to disappear, allowing ourselves to settle down and relax into the situation, allowing ourselves to some degree inwardly meld with the whole group, and also to acknowledge and recognize the fundamental silence which does underlie all things.
Joe,
Jane,
Ian,
Sig,
Sue,
Kim,
Paula, Ron.
We have a cafe up here that they're selling meals and snacks most of the day. There's a shop in the green van just hidden behind those tents up there. This blue tent up the top is an office tent, and the person to see about that is January, who's sitting here. The white tent just up there is a welfare tent. Anyone who's got any kind of physical or other kind of difficulty, or they'd like to talk about anything, require a bit of caring, then Sue is the person to see, who's over here. We also have a hot tub halfway up in the other field, and a children's area at the far corner over there.
I'll say a bit about the sweat lodge. This afternoon we built the sweat lodge, and we've built what is called a community lodge. That's the one with the pit in the middle. What happens is that this is the sacred fire which has been laid in a sacred way, with stones in. The fire gets lit, and when the stones are very hot and the heat goes into the rocks come out and they go into a pit in the sweat lodge. The sweat lodge is often called the turtle because it looks like a turtle with the head and the neck going into the womb. So it's also called the womb of the mother, Earth Mother. And going into the sweat lodge is a journey back into the womb. The womb where we were born from, where we were pure. And so it's a journey back to get rid of all the impurities that have been collected in everyday living, so we can reconnect with the spirit and find our true path in life.
Light streaming, making my fire child grow. Fire child sing, fire child dance, fire child you be mine.
We don't wear any jewellery, but if you want to leave anything to be blessed, you can put it on the altar down here before we go in. The reason you're not wearing jewellery is because your hands may swell a bit and they may start cutting into you, so it can get a bit painful. It's not an endurance test. It is not an endurance test. It's a ceremony for cleansing and purification. It's using the 4 elements. It's using the fire, which goes into the stones. It's using the earth, which we sit on. It's using the air we breathe, and it's using the water with the steam. It's not an endurance test to see how hot it is and stick it out. It's to go in there and fend. If it becomes too much for you, yes, you can come out. You can come out. You just say, you know, I'd like to leave. You can come out, but then you can always come back in again as well. So it's, you know, if you do it as you're feeling good for you.
The minstrel tent was situated in the quietest corner of the camp, underneath 3 willow trees. A space for the menstruating women to be able to come and sit, to sleep, or to read, just to be on their own for a while if they felt the need. In the roof of the tent was a hole through which you could see the branches of the trees and the sunlight, and round the hole hung crystals reflecting the sunlight onto the walls of the tent inside.
The issue is that we need to make the lines a little bit wider than a lawnmower width apart. Actually, maybe if we can look at it of a lawnmower width and then a lawnmower width here, sort of. Everything is a lawnmower width, whatever the hell that is. We built a maze at the encampment out of mud. First of all, started with lime and then puddled mud in around it. The maze is directly on an energy lathe from the Glastonbury tour that ran through the Beltane fire and up through the major axis of the maze. These mazes are found all over the world. They're found in Peru, down in Nazca, on the plains down there, drawn in the enormous figures along with the spiders and lizards and other animals drawn down there. The Hopi Indian in the 4 corners of the United States have a maze that looks like this, and of course there's one down in Crete, which is what this particular model is based on. It's called the classical labyrinth. Its form is that it has 7 turns, and as you run through it, you turn. At each one of these turns, there's a shift in consciousness, and perhaps it could be analogous to going up the chakras. As you turn, each one tunes up the next chakra, and you run so fast and you turn so often that when you get to the center, you don't really know where you are, which is a kind of a confused state which allows you to take advantage of the energies that are there, of the male and the female energies that are there, to go upward. We use this classical labyrinth in the ceremonies that we had at the encampment. There are people walking it all the time. There are people running it, as well as we had a dragon that snaked its way up from the Beltane fire and then into the maze and then back out again. That was very much like a birthing process. I think that while it really is called a classical labyrinth, it sounded to me like people are going to be calling it a maze, because turf mazes are what are found here in England. They're a really neat tool for consciousness raising.
Completely with no limitations for any race, sex, type of animal, winged creature, fish, worm, tree, ant, flower, nation. There are no limitations upon the universal plan of great light, truth, power, and trust. Om Takawasi Ho, all our relations.
Ho!
And it costs a quid and it's available later.
Shall we go to a report on what's been happening with the ceremony group? Is that a good thing to do?
group of us met this afternoon to try and see whether we could come to some consensus about what the spirit was that had brought us here and the ways in which we wanted to use the energies that will no doubt be raised when we work a ceremonial celebration of the events of tomorrow evening. So far, we've come to a consensus. We've begun, as the people who've, by coming, shown themselves to be most interested in it, to get, I think, an agreement about some central ideas. What we haven't done yet is to explore fully precisely what and how we're going to achieve the ends. I think a fair statement of what we did, of what we came to, was that we wanted to achieve a dynamic balance, a coming together. We wanted to use the moment of the eclipse as a threshold to take charge of the power, if you'll accept that term, that's raised in the circle, and to see ways that we could go out from this place at the end of this gathering to pass over what we're picking up here. Now, what I'd very much like to do is to pass an imaginary cauldron around so that people can tell us what ingredients they'd like to put in to the brew that we're going to select from and try and put together when we actually construct a happening. And so, if I might start, for myself, Beltane would not be Beltane without a fire into which one could throw those things one no longer needed to carry about, and over which one could jump hand in hand with a loved one.
Rebearing all ourselves, that we come away from it knowing we've really done something to mark this time.
Healing the planet.
A contrast between different kinds of experience so that we can consciously totally move into a space that we could call ceremonial and spirited, deeply spirited.
Peace.
Silence.
Inner growth.
Bay leaves.
Wildfire. Wood. Healing.
Dancing. Celebration. Water. Fun!
A wish for fine weather.
Springtime and awareness.
Positive direction. Rebirth.
Singing.
Free spirit.
Magic.
Joy. Insight.
Renewal.
Well, that's the ingredients. A group will meet to work on the recipe then, and we'll try and give all of this in forms of drops of inspiration and joy, yeah?
The sacred fire is here as a symbol of the glowing heart of the gathering. It's been quite interesting because it has reflected the up and down moods of the gathering a fair bit. I got here Thursday evening when it was lit, and Friday was a day when people weren't quite sure, I think, quite what was going on, and I came over to the fire several times and nobody had actually thought that they should put wood on it, I don't think. Maybe one or two had. But since then it's upped. People have started catching on to the idea that it's all of ours fire.
it's for everybody, and we all make it or break it between us. On Saturday night, as part of our celebration of Beltane, I suggested that everyone put a piece of wood onto the fire to symbolise the things they wanted to be rid of in the coming year. And that created a wonderful fire that blazed up gloriously for the whole evening and added a lot of good heart and good spirit to what went on that night.
Many people are self-conscious and have some difficulties about, for example, the embarrassment of being seen dressed up and singing a rather illogical chant on a full moon, things like that. That somehow many people made a step there and again became okayed or empowered to use ceremony in their lives. Now when I say ceremony, I don't mean, I define between ceremony and ritual. Ritual to me is a repetition, which can be very worthwhile, of set formulae for expanding your awareness and for achieving certain spiritual ends. Whereas ceremony is a different thing. It's a certain attitude of mind and a certain kind of creativity. It's almost dramatic. It's almost like acting out a minor drama, which somehow enhances our experience of things. It somehow gives a deeper meaning and significance to the fact of being alive, really. By things like, for example, the Japanese tea ceremony, they can make the act of drinking a cup of tea into an immensely symbolic experience, which doesn't anymore really relate to the functional question of drinking a cup of tea. It relates a lot to the very purpose of life. And if the purpose of life is to benefit from it, then basically we might as well maximize on the possible benefit we can get out of drinking a cup of tea, because this is life. Just so happened this full moon of May coincided with Beltane, and also that the full moon was an eclipse of the moon. Now an eclipse of the moon is formed when the sun and the earth and the moon are so exactly in a straight line that basically the shadow of the earth falls on the moon, on the full moon, basically. And an eclipse is a very, very stirring thing. There are various things here. Speaking as an astrologer, for example, there are various things like a full moon is a climactic time anyway. It is when energy is rife. And you can often get yourself into big trouble in full moons if you don't watch out. And animals notice it, and it's very... Any sensitive person can notice what full moons do. But on an eclipse, which can last about... An eclipse of the moon can last about an hour and a half, usually. The light of the moon can be gradually obliterated by the shadow of the Earth. So what's happening is that during the space of an hour and a half, the moon is going through its complete cycle of phases in an hour and a half instead of 29 days. Right? And so, and this reveals, in terms of the sort of the mysticism of the feminine, as symbolized in the cycle of the moon, this reveals a certain secret aspect of the what you could look on as the lunar goddess. She reveals this secret aspect only sometimes, once in a blue moon. We're not just sort of planning these camps and then setting up a program and people come along and they attend a whole load of lectures and they get entertainments and everything gets sorted out for them. It's not like that. It's more about setting up the camp and the wherewithal within which people can do it. And then when they come, they can actually influence the situation.
Possibility of 3 sessions today, although it depends on how fast we manage to clear things now. Morning, afternoon and evening. And if people who are proposing workshops or groups would like to state their preference for morning, afternoon or evening, then do so, otherwise we'll shuffle it around as best we can.
I'm doing a workshop on medicinal herbs, on native medicinal herbs, if anybody's interested in that, and I thought to do that this morning after Powwow. That's okay.
Yeah.
And as traditional craft wicker as I can, so that people who want that experience of those images can have it. And I'd like to do that early evening, in the way I did the story, perhaps before an evening session. So, say, I'll make a bid for 7:30 in here.
But he's interested. And people who are interested in crystals, maybe we can get together sometime, either today or tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow, because there's a lot of workshops today, and share our knowledge on crystals. If anybody's interested in that, see me afterwards.
And the psychosynthesis, when did you say? Afternoon, right. 8 to 9:30. And then, what was the name? From 9:30 onwards. Right, if you 3 could keep your timings reasonably on. Right, so I don't know, Nick, shall we do the tour thing tomorrow?
It seems better.
Right. Oh, we have a slight problem.
Yes, okay. Medicinal herbs in the round tent. Circle dance in here. Astral projection. Round tent.
On the astral tent.
Actually, as it happens, we're all such juniors at group process like this that things don't get sorted out totally quite often. But they got sorted out well enough, and everyone felt that if they had a gripe, they could raise it and it would be okay, you know. And so this is the function of Powwow, really. It's to decide what's going to happen and also to give a forum for people to influence the camp if they want to, in any way.
They are the largest living plants on this planet, the largest living beings. I mean, some people will admit that rocks do live, and there are rocks larger than trees, but there are an awful lot of trees around, and they're something that breathe in carbon dioxide, breathe out oxygen. They're a manifestation of a very large life force that has been on this planet longer than we have. And every day that I've been here, I've been for a walk through the woods. I don't know whether I should have done or not, but there are some very interesting trees here in this area. They're very nice to look at from a distance. But for those people who would like, I mean, I feel that people should share the experience of actually communicating with trees. You can communicate with them. They can communicate with you. So I don't know what to do about it. I mean, I feel it's probably slightly irresponsible to say let's set up a workshop and go marching off all over the countryside and probably freak the local farmers right out of their tiny brains. But and Park Wood isn't a particularly brilliant specimen of a wood. I mean, it's got a lot of modern agroforestry in it, but it's there. There's a very spectacular avenue of Lebanese cedar there, which are amongst some of the ancientest trees in the world, in the Middle East. And there are 2 specimens of redwood, which are the most ancient trees in the world and come from California, which have been planted here. There's energy around in some of the nice trees here, and I think I would like to share with people some of my stories on trees. I don't quite know how to do it. It's not the sort of thing you can really set a time for. It's more, you know, the way you feel. But it's a problem I'm having. I don't know whether anybody else wants to join in it, or, I mean, there are obviously a lot of things going down. I don't want to disturb anybody. But,
tomorrow.
Just notice your shoulders, how they feel. Rain happening now. I think we can drive away the rain. Let's do a dance that's quite similar to that one. This is from Macedonia. The last one's Greek. This is from Macedonia. The steps are very similar, but some different rhythm to it. This is the Macedonian national dance called Pravo Oro. It's got a turn in it. Pravo Oro. Tell me you know this. So this one, quite a build-up to it with a bagpipe. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very similar steps, only walking forward. Okay, so to the right. Shoulders, no. You need to go right. Starting with the right. Right, in front, right. And this time don't hop so much, just bend the foot. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the foot is flexed in front, the knee is bent. Not so much as a kick this time, as a raise. 2, 3, keep your body facing to the centre.
There was an old, much maligned system called the doctrine of signatures, whereby it was supposed that a plant's natural healing properties could be told just by looking at the plant. It was a medieval system, and it was pretty corrupted by the time it got written down, so that it does sound a bit absurd. The idea that all red plants are good for blood conditions, or yellow plants are good for liver conditions. If a plant's got a heart-shaped leaf, it must be good for the heart. Well, actually, it's very often true. But I mean, it's a slight oversimplification. What it really came down from was a direct communicating with plants, not just by their physical look, but to just a greater extent, in fact, to some degree, a greater extent, by their actual life habits, where they live, how they grow, how they propagate, their whole life cycle, the sort of land they grow in. And when you combine that, you can very often find out that, you know, the property of that plant will be revealed to you. And if you can develop that, I think you can get into a position, along with sort of, you know, book knowledge about herbs, where there's very often you will find this, you need a plant in a hurry, you need something's going on in a hurry, a friend's just done something for ourselves, and you need to find a plant to help them. Then it'll be growing right there. And what you need will be growing right there, or very nearby. I mean, that's even happened to me in cities before. Accidents that I've helped out with, and just growing on the roadside has been the right plant. So it does happen. You can bring that sort of, that magic back.
located in the third eye. And for this one we use E, we use the sound E, E. It's much higher, and the mudra is like this. For this one you can look up through the point of your diamond, make a diamond and look up. And just focus the energy between the eyes, and we use E for this. These are L or angle rods, and the thing about these, which we're going to work with, is that they're made from copper. This is a highly conductive material that is very much in tune with all kinds of energies, including the energies of the body. I deliberately have bought these rather than these kind of rods, which for me are moving into a slightly different area. These have swivels on them, which makes them, they swing very easily, but to my mind they don't give the contact with the body, which these copper rods do.
I think Nick is saying each dowser chooses his or her own tools, and they're very personal.
So already we're building up a picture of this kind of shape.
This is the first time
Does that mean he hasn't got one at all?
Let's shake out the arms. Shake the skeleton and forget the rest. Shake the neck. Okay. The quality of that is that it's rising, that the energy is travelling up your spine. The lower half of the body is rooting into the ground. Not wanting to divide the body too much, but just have that rooting down. But also the energy that we're taking in from the air is much lighter, more yin in quality and expansive. So the upper part of the body is open, the arms are very light, very soft, and relax. As we just start to work. Open the body. Stretch up. Open to your arms through the root.
So I think that this family that's being forged at this sort of gathering And if these gatherings are repeated up and down the country, which you never know if Harold Wilson gets re-elected as Prime Minister, might be happening shortly. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to bring my political viewpoints into this. This is, of course, strictly a non-political gathering. Nobody here talks about politics or the Daily Mirror or the news of the world. It's just automatically assumed that everybody is a Trotskyite. Which goes without saying, except for the few of us who in fact aren't. But, you know, nevertheless, there does seem to be two camps in this place, which is perhaps rather unfortunate. There are those of us in this side, where I'm talking at the moment in this field, which is being called suburbia, and there are those in the more traditional part, otherwise known as grots. Now, the difference between the two is as follows. Over there, they are into the earth, they're into breaking logs of wood with meat cleavers, they're into vans. The only distinction between all of them being that some are slightly uglier than others, and they're into being as dirty and as near to the earth as possible. Now, on this side of the field, in suburbia, we have the working classes tents. We have those salaried officials of our state who keep us going. They have purchased tents. They have purchased luxurious sleeping bags and sleeping bag liners. One child this morning, who obviously lives in this part, during the dance meeting led by Rosie, said of one of the movements, "Well, of course, this is exactly the movement you make while you're skiing." Ah, yes, fine. And everybody else cringed. So there are two camps here, very distinctly. There is the camp of the suburbanites, who would like to think that they belong to the earth spirits. And there's a camp of those completely itinerant hobos who function on the other side, and who seem to have a very large chip on their shoulder about those who function on this side. Well, I don't know whether that's particularly a productive thing to happen, but at the big meetings and the powwows in the morning and the circle dances in the afternoon, things do occasionally get together and the emotions really flow. And when that happens, and when you see the smiles, and when you identify with the coup d'oeil that happens when you look and you feel the energy response from the other people's eyes, you begin to realize that it is possible for those differences to be settled, for everyone to realize what they do have in common, and for the whole family unit to be re-established once more, and to offer up its whole very able self up to the powers that be.
One of the things with all of these camps, regardless of the theme, is that I feel we're giving people an opportunity to experience community. For many, for the first time in their lives. For children, it's often very important, and for parents as well. And I feel this is a very, very important initiation, which we all need to learn to do now. We've got to stop competing. We've got to stop having our enemies over the water who are going to bomb us out. We've got to stop protecting our property. We've got to join together in this world and pool our energy, because there's so much to be getting on with. You know? And it's so much easier in a functioning community. So much easier. There are not appointed leaders or strict, rigid organizational structures, you know. And I feel this is a really, really important thing, because it then becomes a creative process for everyone. And it means that everyone can appreciate, right, we're all different. We've got different ways, different beliefs, different values, and this sort of thing, but we can still get on with one another and really have a good time.
That's it, 3 rules. No talking, keep moving, keep your eyes open.
wind on the sea, waves hello to me. So painted oceans sing my fantasy. When you speak, your spirit sings to me. I don't need to see, I need only see. But are you a rainbow warrior? Rainbow warrior. Are you rainbow warrior? Are you a rainbow warrior? From the Emerald Island of Avalon to the sapphire stars in the void, fly the moonstone ships of the motherhood with stories of mist and joy. Are you a rainbow warrior? Are you a rainbow warrior? Rainbow warrior.
No, he's obviously picked up a good energy line there.
Right.
Give it these thermals.
Screaming on down the
There's a lot over this field. He's going to come over this field and you'll see him go like that without any blowing any
Get over the sacred fire and be gone.
Woo!
I came to Glastonbury, moved to Glastonbury several months ago, because it seems to be a place where if one is really interested in transforming oneself and moving into a more spiritual path, it's a place where that can happen. And this Earth Mysteries gathering here, the feeling that I've had over and over again, what I've been talking about in my journal as I keep my notes about what's happening, is this is what I came here for. I think the thing that intrigues me the most about this gathering is that while there's all kinds of interest in megalithic Britain and in the Druids and in the craft and in Celtic Christianity and all different kinds of spiritual paths, it seems that most of the people here are into using that information but designing something for today. There's an old saying that says, I do not seek to follow in the footsteps of the ancient ones. I seek what they sought.
Glastonbury seems to be a centre of energy, and what I'm particularly interested in is different energy sites in different parts of the world. And we've just spent a lot of time at Ayers Rock, and it was quite by accident. We came to London and a friend gave us a leaflet for here, and we just thought, oh yeah, why not? Came out here, but it's been really good. I've got a lot out of it anyway. Sweat Lodge was great, and I had a chance to talk to lots of people from all sorts of different persuasions. So it's been a really good learning time.
What's been your experience of the camp?
Well, it's a bit hard to explain, really. You can't really put this sort of thing into words, can you?
It's quite intense, isn't it?
Oh, well, this is it. I mean, everyone's feeling it. You know, a real togetherness.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
Yes.
Because, you know, there's too many people living separate lives and, well, in their own little cosy knit sort of places and getting out of it too much. In the wrong sense of the word, you know, sort of dividing themselves opposed to keeping together.
Yes.
And listening to others.
Yes. Do you find that this camp has been full of listeners?
Oh yeah, I mean everyone's contributed something in their own little ways, which touches people's hearts, you know.
And yours.
Well, yeah.
I don't really know what the word ritual and ceremony really mean, but I feel that we are all trying to sort of dig out this something that is so uniquely our own, that wants to sort of come from the depths of our togetherness. And I feel that I personally feel I've made a breakthrough in my own feeling about it, because I had quite a block about, well, we call it paganism or rituals borrowed from other cultures that I don't necessarily understand 100%, you know, and therefore don't really feel a right to borrow their forms, you know, and yet there's such a strong need, I mean, in all of us to come together in a celebratory manner. I mean, I feel we all know how to work together. That's a form which we can understand, doing things, cooking, whatever we do, which is mundane. But when it comes to actually wanting to work together on the other levels, which are the joy-creating, celebratory levels that call in the beings of the etheric and the angels and, you know, that environment, I just feel we're all kids and our teachers are invisible, and we've just got to all trust each other to be channels of knowledge and understanding. And I feel that I'm trying to open up, and I feel I've started to, and I just really pray that we come through with a form that is just so perfect in that area. And I just
was an attempt to raise wildfire, to generate fire out of friction, as the ancients will have done, instead of using a lighter or matches. And although this failed, there was a very, very sincere wish behind that, a very, very sincere wish to get in contact with something deep inside us, something very, very natural, very, very simple, very, very powerful as well, because the creation of fire out of non-fire is a miracle. Although it failed, we learned something there about the fact that, in fact, it's not quite so easy going back to nature as we originally thought. We've got to really get this one straight, and it's going to be a gradual process, you know. And so that was very exciting. And the way in which we dealt with the failure to raise wildfire was also very, very good. We validated our incapacity to be natural in a certain kind of way. And someone came along with a torch and said, right, let's symbolically say we have created fire and get on with the ceremony, you know. Instead of, again, getting worried about whether the gods or ourselves or anyone else, the man on the video camera, would be sort of interested or worried about the fact that we hadn't created fire in the right way.
until recently, most people in the village would have thought of this kind of activity as just part of what they see as the Glastonbury loony fringe, and it wouldn't have affected them much. But when it's actually on your doorstep, you begin to think about things in a slightly different light. And I think, in fact I know now, that there's quite a lot of hostility towards what's going on. Not so much whether there will be noise or disturbance or that kind of thing, but on whether anything is happening spiritually harmful in the village. And that really brings me on to what I want to say from a Christian point of view, which is that I'm sure that there are good things, of course there are good things about what goes on that camp over these few days. I'm sure there is a good feeling of sharing and brotherhood of man and that kind of thing. But I'm sure also that there is an involvement in some things which are potentially very dangerous, that there is an attempt, for example, to contact spirits from the past, and Beltane himself was a frankly pagan person who would have no truck at all with Christianity. So I think you can't avoid the fact that these things are, in some ways anyway, on something of a collision course. And I think from the Church's point of view, it's certainly sad perhaps that such a thing should happen here in what we have to regard as the cradle of Christianity. And it just shows that people have spiritual needs, and at the moment anyway, some people are expressing those needs in terms of looking for earth mysteries and earth mothers and all that kind of thing. But I would want to say for myself that not only do I think such things are unnecessary, but that they can be very dangerous, and occasionally one has to pick up the pieces from people who have been hurt emotionally or spiritually by such experiences.
Because here we've had Indian stuff from America, we've had people talking about, you know, Aboriginal stuff from Australia. I mean, there's all the religions of the world there. I mean, you know, you're talking about something
Christians.
Including Christians. We talked about it in the powwows.
We don't exclude Christians. There were people in the circle this morning who are making the point that they are Christian. And great, far out. It's good to have them here.
What is the meaning, Mom?
We're only here to answer that question.
Oh.
It is not always you can find the correct answer.
I had an overdraft on.
Well, what are you going to do about it, you silly slow?
I am trying to find the answer.
Well, there's no use looking to me, for it is there. Isn't it much better to contact your bank manager? What are you going to do about it now? Have you resolved to change the future as a result of this camp? What is your next role? When are we going to find out for here? This is really terrible.
I don't know.
Oh dear, we have a desperate staff shortage here. This is very bad news. It would be necessary for you to precede me in the customary fashion. Here we are at this time. We should greet the sun with all our power. We should feel its warmth coming up into our spirit. We should be together with it. We should resolve. We should resolve from this time forth to be with each other and take a part of this camp home with us.
Oh,
No, not yet. We are more to be performed with musical instruments. A musical instrument has to vibrate with the om. Here comes the om. Here comes another om. Here comes the musical instrument.
Some people have accused me and us of being involved in black magic, for example, and I feel very sad that this sort of thing should come up, actually, because I think there's something very, very sincere and deep-seated in the motivation that all of us have in doing something like coming to one of these camps. We really have a deep-seated, real wish for humanity to improve its lot in a real way, and for nature to come back into balance, and for people to become more happy, and for an end to war, and an end to exploitation, and an end to the unwholesome kinds of things that we experience in the 1980s. We all have a very, very deep-seated wish to see this happen in some way at some time.
Tomorrow morning I've got to be somebody else entirely. I've got to go to London and put a suit on and a tie and be somebody else entirely and get some money work in. And it seems so astonishing to me to have to go away from this nation and do that stuff. I don't know whether there'll be a chance to say thank you and goodbye. I think you know thank you. And I'd like to say one very brief thing about the camp. I came here with very, very high expectations. Unreasonably high expectations. And every one of those has been surpassed enormously. Thank you.
Thank you all for a wonderful Beltane. I look forward to next year.
I think I'll be able to fly home on this tomorrow. All the good energy everybody's putting into it. I'm really glad I'm here, and I'm really glad you're all here. And I hope we'll meet again.
I've always found it very difficult to talk to more than one person at once. Sitting here like this makes me very nervous, but with the warmth of all the people here, my fears are beginning to melt. Thank you.
I really find it hard to speak because I am overwhelmed. But the spiral in and out represents for me this place. I'm sure this place has been impregnated, and so have I.
This place has been, by virtue of us all, a place of the open heart. And I think a lot of us have been having a lot of difficulties during the last few months. And being here, and interacting and having contact, and expressing our love and our difficulties, has been like a balm to our souls, to ourselves as human beings. And I feel very glad being here. And I feel so much contact with everybody. And this is really a promise of what can be for us all. And for
I found many things at this camp. I found a wonderful unity amongst this tremendous diversity of people. I found peace, also excitement and inspiration. I think most of all I found a long-cherished dream come true at last. So I'd like to thank Palden and all the work crew for all the hard work they must have put into making this space available here. And I'd like to thank everyone else just for creating what has been created in this space. And I look forward to watching it grow.
And I never felt that any one of you weren't my family. And I love you all very much.
Many more miracles.
It's said that when we say thank you, we give away our power. And giving away our power to each other is what we came for. I'd like to say that while, as an Englishman, I mean thank you, what I really mean is I really recognize you lot. And I know you recognize me. And we're going to meet again. And if it's not us as individuals, we'll keep the nation running. And like someone said, move on.
This evening, Mendip planners are meeting to discuss an application to hold what's been condemned as pagan activities in a field at Butleigh near Glastonbury. Villagers say they don't want a second gathering of young people later this year to follow on from a camp which was held in May. It's already May. Still May, I mean. Must have been earlier on in May. They say they're worried anyway by the educational element in the camps, which is concerned with pagan studies. The man who organises the camps is astrologer Palden Jenkins from West Pennard, near Glastonbury. He's on the line to me now. Good afternoon to you.
Yes, hello.
Are your camps pagan?
Well, in a certain way, yes, I'd say they are, but I wouldn't put a negative connotation on them that a lot of people, especially the people who've used this term in this way, would put. Because to me, a pagan is a person who is open to nature and loves nature, and a person who is open to many different kinds of spiritual paths and chooses their own amongst them. That's what I understand to be a pagan, and if you understand it that way, then they're pagan, yes.
But as soon as you say that, there are people who will come to you and say, that means you dance naked round sacrificial altars and, all that sort of thing.
Yes, I think that comes from reading too many books which don't really know anything much about this. People who are pagans are interested in, certainly in celebrating the wonders of life and of nature. They don't necessarily dance naked around sacrificial altars, though. They're pretty sensible people.
What about the sort of people who come on your camps? Who are they, and do they have full knowledge of what they're letting themselves in for beforehand?
They certainly have full knowledge of it, yes, because we write a very carefully written leaflet beforehand, which gives a full briefing of what to expect. The sort of people who come are largely aged between 20 and 50, and they're usually very, very intelligent people who have this interest themselves anyway. They're certainly not innocent. We get a good number of professionals, including at this camp we had an archaeologist and a dean from the church, and a couple of lawyers and people like this, as well as people from abroad, people who just have a quiet interest in these sorts of things, various different kinds of people.
If you'd managed to get a few Mendip planners along last time, maybe you wouldn't have this problem now of possibly being refused permission.